All right, let's dive right into a global crisis that's escalating by the hour. We're going to break down the key moments, who the major players are, and really, the huge impact this is already having on the entire world. Let's get into it. So, the source material starts us off with this absolutely harrowing scene in Iran's capital. After American and Israeli strikes hit nearby oil depots, the city, home to 9 million people, is literally choking under clouds of oil-soaked rain. There are reports of fire running through the streets like rivers.
But then you have this jarring contrast. While Tehran is dealing with what sounds like an apocalypse, the official word from Washington, coming from an ABC News interview, sounds incredibly detached.
So the big question is, right, how does a little glitch blow up into a full-scale war? A war that has already shut down one of the world's most critical trade routes, cost American lives, and has the entire Middle East on a knife's edge.
This analogy really helps to understand Iran's next move. It perfectly frames a crucial strategic decision, one that was made, of all places, on live American television, and a decision that completely changed the direction of this conflict.
Okay, so this brings us to why that handshake was refused. And, this wasn't the first time a ceasefire was on the table. Let's look at the specific chain of events that led Iran's foreign minister to just flat out reject the offer in public.
You really have to see the pattern here, because it's key. After those first strikes, which reportedly even hit an elementary school, Iran actually accepted a ceasefire. But what happened next? New strikes hit critical civilian infrastructure. We're talking hospitals, water plants. So you can see why, from Iran's perspective, the next ceasefire offer looked a lot less like a path to peace and more like a tactical pause for their opponents to reload. And so they said no.
And the spiral into chaos, it's not just happening over there in the Middle East. The source zeroes in on 3 specific moments from just last weekend, calling them receipts, like actual proof, windows into a situation that seems to be escalating with no breaks, at all.
So let's walk through these 3 receipts, one by one, because they tell you a lot about the mindset and the messaging that's driving this conflict from the American side.
So receipt number 1 comes from the president himself. He was asked about the risks to Americans, about terror threats, the economic fallout, and this was his response. A war that has already resulted in American soldiers returning home in flag-draped coffins is described as just a detour.
And it gets wilder. In that same interview, he made this claim that he should be personally consulted on who becomes Iran's next supreme leader. The source describes this as not being about strategy, but as delusion dressed up as strength. Then you have receipt number 2, courtesy of Senator Lindsey Graham. He's on the morning shows, and he's already pitching the next war before this one is even remotely over. He's calling for America's allies to get in this fight and promising to blow the hell out of these people.
All right, the third receipt is a little different. It's quieter, but as the source points out, it's just as telling. During a dignified transfer ceremony for 6 fallen American service members, the president wore a campaign hat. Fox News, when they aired the ceremony, used footage from a totally different transfer where he wasn't wearing the hat. They later had to issue a correction for what they called an inadvertent error.
And the source is really clear on this point. These 6 Americans are heroes. They are not political props. Their names deserve to be spoken, honored, and remembered.
So, that profound human cost, that's one massive part of the story. The other is the economic shockwave that is now spreading out from the conflict zone across the entire globe. And this isn't some distant problem. Its effects are immediate, and they are very real.
To really get the scale of what we're talking about, you have to start with this number, 20%. That is how much of the entire world's oil supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz. And as of right now, that critical choke point is basically shut down.
And to put that shutdown into perspective, 80 years. It has been 80 years since tanker traffic in the strait has dropped to almost nothing. This is a historic and very deliberate disruption of the global energy supply.
And the shock to the system is just staggering. Take Iraq. Its oil output has plummeted by 60%. Qatar has shut down its natural gas production. The economic damage is spreading fast, and it's turning the global economy itself into a weapon.
So why does any of this matter to you and me? Well, all of this economic damage translates directly to your wallet. Analysts are projecting higher prices at the pump, more expensive groceries, and serious volatility in retirement accounts. We could see inflation jump past 4% and long-term supply chain disruptions that start affecting jobs.
Okay, so that's the situation on the ground. The critical question, the one everyone is asking, is where does this all go from here? The source lays out 3 possible and frankly, deeply challenging scenarios.
So these are the potential futures. First, there's a fragile negotiated off-ramp. The second possibility is a major regional realignment, where countries in the Middle East start making new alliances that don't include Washington. And the third? Well, the third is the path of full escalation that Senator Graham was talking about, a ground war, an attempt at regime change, and what could be a catastrophe for a generation.
But here's the bottom line, the key takeaway. No matter which of these paths is taken, the security setup of the Middle East is already fractured. The source argues that Iran has learned a lot from this cycle of engagement, while Washington still hasn't laid out a clear way to get out of this. The old arrangement is simply over.
And we'll end on that final, critical question from the source. A question that really cuts to the very heart of this crisis and the profound uncertainty that lies ahead for all of us. Thanks for joining me.